All right, so everyone sees my screen, and you'll actually see the POS software up on the screen, and that's the main logon screen. So last week, I just wanted to go over the basics. We covered all the basic hardware. We covered all the common connection types that you might see, so you kind of have an idea of what everything is. And by no means did we cover every single type of POS hardware we support. I just wanted to cover all the common stuff. All right. Speaking of hardware, if you need a specific piece of hardware tested, you're not sure how it works, send it to our office. We'll take a look, see if we can get it to work or not, and then we'll ship it back with any notes whether it's working. If it does work, we'll put jot down notes on how to get it to work. If it doesn't work, we'll let you know, things of that nature. Now, just because we can get it to work, we may not officially support it. We're just saying we got it to work. For example, printers. Officially, we only support Epson printers and Star Micronics printers, but we know for a fact that many other brands work. But even if we test it, we do have to kind of limit the list of the officially supported hardware, the quote unquote officially supported. And even then, with a brand like Epson, which we do support, we may not be able to support every single printer model that they have. There's simply too much hardware out there for us to even attempt to support everything. All right. All right. With that said, we also showed you how to install software last week. So, is there any questions regarding the software install? Anything that you need clarifying? Okay. Yeah. Um, and I always try to give time before any new material starts just to see if you have any questions. You're also free to send me an email um, or give us a call if there's any clarification you need as you review the material. Because even though we're doing the training sessions, if you don't actually practice, the material, go through it, see, you won't really retain the knowledge. And by no means am I asking anyone to memorize anything, but if I gave you a few notes on how to install, you should be familiar enough to just go right through it because you should have already practiced it. All right. Okay. So if no one has any questions about the software install, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I've already opened up the POS software, and this is what we call the logon screen, simply because this is where when you first start up, you'll see it, but then you'll enter your password to access the various parts of the POS software. Now, let's go in brief what happens during the business day, right? And we'll cover that in more detail, but I know we're trying to do a crash course, so some of your merchants might have questions on that. So at the beginning of the day, generally speaking, they'll clock in because everybody's got to clock in before you can use the system. So you're going to enter your password or swipe a card. We do support an MSR for swiping if they don't want to manually type in the card number, and then you'll clock in. Now, on this clock in screen, there's actually a bunch of other functionality in here, but since we're just kind of showing you the basics at the moment, we're just concerned about clocking in and clocking out, right? So we're going to clock in. Now, you notice that on the left side, there's actually job codes. So some of the employees may actually have different jobs that they're doing. So some days they come in, they might be a waiter. Some days they come in, they might be a cashier. So we actually support multiple job codes, which of course controls what you can and cannot do in the POS software. Most places we deal with actually get lazy and over whatever jobs you might be doing. So in this case, on the left side, you'll see we have a cashier, right? And it's just a name, manager and virtual, right? And basically, they're just names. We can name these job codes whatever we want, really. Now, with that said, when we select a job code, you'll notice on the right side, there's actually different cash drawer access. We have, of course, virtual drawer, which is self bank. So if you ever been in a restaurant, some of the wait staff there, the waiters, they actually don't pay for the ticket at the cashier station, they actually close it out, pay everything themselves, and they hold on to the money until the end of the day when they settle with the owner or manager. And with a virtual drawer, it means you have full access for payment, but it means you also do not have access to the physical cash drawer. That's the difference. So I can, if I was a waiter and I'm self bank or virtual drawer, you know, when I go in and I pay for a ticket, it assumes I'm holding on to the money. So no physical drawer will pop even if there's one attached to that station. And of course, we do have the physical cash drawers, which usually means a cashier. And a lot of times, this is places where you have a dedicated cashier, but not always. Every restaurant runs a little different. And you'll notice that we support 2 cash drawers per station. The reason why we do that is we've had bar environments where even though there's only one POS station, bartender 1 has access to drawer 1, bartender 2 has access to drawer 2, because each one of them is responsible for their own money, and and rather than mixing it up, we do support 2 cash drawers. So, when I log in and I'm bartender 1, it knows which is my drawer, and when I pay a cash ticket, it'll pop up out drawer 1. As opposed to bartender 2, when he logs in with his password, it knows who he is, and it'll pop, cash drawer 2. I'm just going to choose cash drawer 1 for right now. The next screen you see is, do you want to share this drawer, right? And what that's asking is this. If I'm a cashier and I log in, I'm responsible for the money. I'm the first one that log in during the day. And I'm starting the cash drawer. So it's saying, hey, do you want to make this drawer exclusively yours? Meaning, even though someone else comes in, they can pay for a ticket, but it won't pop open the drawer because, until I clock out and close that drawer, it's my drawer. Right? So do you want to share it? If I share it, that means someone else can go in, pay for a ticket, and it would pop out the physical drawer. If you're not sure, I would just stick to choosing yes. The next screen is, this part is optional. And what I mean by optional is you don't have to do anything. You can just click Start Drawer. But what this is the starting cash screen. So this is where you're going to enter any starting cash that you may have, right? So, again, you can enter the amount. Now, you can actually get lazy. For example, I can just type 100 and click Enter, and it would not enter the exact ones. So the other thing you can do is actually enter the exact amounts you have, and this can get a little tricky for most people at first. Basically, it's the number of bills. For example, if I have $25 in fives, I don't type 25. I would just type 5 because obviously you have five $5 bills. So I'm going to type 5, make sure I select the 5s, and click Enter. So that can get a little tricky for some people at first. All right. So whatever your starting cash is, go down the list and enter it. Or, like I said, you can get lazy in the beginning and just type in the total amount and click Enter. If you need to pop open a drawer, you can click Cash Drawer, and it would pop out the physical cash drawer so you can actually put money in, right? And when we're done, click Start Drawer. This is a summary. And we're going to click OK. So we clocked in, we claimed the cash drawer, and now we can actually log in and get the work done. Now, this is what we call the dashboard. And, for most people that do dine in, this is the screen that they want to see. So at the bottom, there's a few controls. Back is, of course, exit back to the logon screen. We can start a refund ticket. We can pop open the physical cash drawer. The dispatcher function is used for delivery, which, basically you're sending out you're assigning tickets to a driver to send out. We can start bar tabs. Table is basically your table layout, so you can select the tables that you want to start. Recall tickets is basically reopen tickets that are open. If you paid for a ticket and closed it, it's not here. It's basically reopening any tickets that are not actually paid for and closed. You know, for example, if you have a table that's open, you want to go into that same table to add more items or maybe to pay for that ticket, you would use that. Fast sale is again more for like QSR, where you don't care about tracking the table. Usually you start the ticket, pay for it, and you're out. And of course, the pickup delivery, that's to start any pickup or delivery tickets because there is a caller ID function that's attached, and that's where we put everything. Okay, at the very top is basically your list of ticket types, and if you had a previously open ticket, you can actually click on that and then go into it. So let's go ahead and start a fast sale ticket. Click on fast sale, and this is the ticket screen, right? On the left side is the ticket with all your items. Down the middle is your menu categories, and on the right side is all your menu items itself. Now, it's maybe a little hard to see based on this like example database, but there's a red line to indicate what category you're in, so you can click on different categories, right? And you notice there's buttons missing. Basically, they're hidden. Um, the reason they're hidden is because you see this one, the black one. Black one usually means it's item 86. If anyone's familiar with that term, it basically means that menu item is not available at the moment. But what we find is people still try to click it, and then they see this, right? This item is currently out, item 86, and they keep doing that, and then complaining. So what we did is put it in a feature where you can just hide the button, and that's what that is. Now, one thing you'll notice is what we call the hot menu. And basically, these are menu items that are commonly ordered. So what happened is instead of making you jump back to that category for that particular item, you know, these hot items are always front and center. You'll notice that even though I change categories, the hot items never change. And the hot items can belong in any menu category. Again, they're just like a special category that shows up no matter where you are. Now, your menu, if you have more than one page of menu items, there's actually a page button that shows up. So if we go to the right side, click on the right side, that goes to page 2, even though it's not labeled, and we have more menu items. And of course, we can go back, right? Whoops, sorry, that was the wrong one. Sorry, it's over here. That was actually the hot items. I apologize. So this is actually to the second page of menu items, right? And we can go back. Now on the categories, right below the categories is the same thing. So if you have more than one page of categories, you can jump back and forth. So you're not limited to one page on anything. When designing a menu, even though we have pretty much unlimited number of pages when designing a menu, it doesn't make sense to go more than about 3 pages or 4 pages max, because if you're clicking that many page buttons, you may have to rethink your design. You don't want them to have to click like 5, 6 times just to get to a single menu item, All right. So left side is where the menu items are entered. So if we enter something, right, that's where it shows up. Right side is where the menu items are. Now on the bottom, we do have some additional buttons. So these are what we call ticket commands. We can also pop open the cash drawer. If it's quick cash, someone's paying you the money and they don't really need change, you can click quick cash. It just assumes you're paying for the entire ticket with cash. Discount ticket is pretty obvious. It's discounting the entire ticket, right? So if we click on it, we can add a discount. And we have an open discount where it's basically free form. We can do whatever we want, right? And we have these pre-created discounts. So let's just select one of these pre-created discounts right now. And when I did that, it just applied the 5% discount, which is exactly what it is. And you can actually see that right here, 5% off. Click on discount again. We can remove the discount if we made a mistake. And let's go ahead and add the open discount. So let's select open discount. And what I mean by freeform is this. I can do whatever I want. So even our example menu item is only $1, but let's say we get 50% off. I can type 50 and click OK. That's 50%, right? Whoops. I've got a menu lock on there, so give me one moment. There's actually a little thing where we can say, hey, this can only be applied to a certain dollar amount and up. So one moment. So let's do this. Let's go back in, make our open discount, and then click OK. So that's 50% off, not $50 off. Let's remove the let's remove the discount. And this time I'm going to type 5, but this time I'm going to press flat amount. And what that does when I do that is instead of a percentage, what it'll do is say, hey, make it a flat amount, or a set dollar amount off. So instead of 5%, that's actually $5. And I can type 5.25 if it's 5.25 off or whatever. And again, you can see that down here. So that's making a discount. So that's commonly used. New person. If some places track how many people there are on the ticket. So if you want to do that, whatever you're by default, whatever you're adding is on person number 1. But if you had more than one person and you actually want to track that, click on new person, and then whatever you add will go on seat number 2, and it'll actually track all that info. I can click on seat number 1 and add something else, or I can click on seat number 2 and add something else. So basically, you track what seat ordered what, and that'll actually be used later on for, say, split ticket, if everyone's saying they want to pay on their own, or some places actually want to track what menu items are there so they can place it in front of that exact person right away. So that's what the new person is for. I'm going to skip the print, check, and send for a moment. Previous orders not really used for this. It's used more for like if you actually selected an employee, a customer. For example, that customer is a repeat, and this is, for example, say a pickup or delivery ticket where you actually have the customer's name on here for tracking purposes. You can actually see what they previously ordered and reselect that. Now, we have the menu here. You can go in the menu and you can add an item, right? Well, we also have an open item, so in case something is not on the menu, you can actually type it in. So click open item, type in a name, type in a price. We have a tax inclusive flag, and of course, select the tax type. And there's an on-screen keyboard as well if you don't have a physical keyboard. Click OK, and basically you typed in your custom menu item. All right. Split ticket we won't go through right now, but that's actually used later. Taxes and tips, we'll skip that for now. We'll come back to those, in other words. All right. Now there's also some more ticket commands down here. Okay, so if this item here, you want to add a note for the kitchen staff, for example, you can say this is a rush, right? Whoops. Sorry, you got to actually do that beforehand. So let's say we want to rush something, right? It'll actually print the spring roll, but then below it, it'll show rush. Now we can also have the don't make to go as well. To go would let them know that, hey, you package this for to go. Now we also have a double shot, right? There's actually a discount involved with that. So a double absolute versus a regular absolute, you'll notice it's not $12. There's usually a small discount with a double shot. So we can do that in a bar environment as well. Okay, so those are all different ways of adding a menu item to a ticket. Now, when we're sending, there's actually a few send buttons. We can do send, which would send and exit the ticket. Right? So if I click send, you'll notice it sends and exit the ticket. Now, remember earlier I said that at the very top it shows all your tickets that are created. So you can actually click on here. It'll list all the tickets based on whichever type you clicked on. For example, fast sale. Now, I don't really have any other tickets yet. For example, fast sale. It would list all the fast sales ticket. And you can actually cycle through the different ticket types down here in the bottom. So select whichever ticket it is if you have, usually you have more than one. And then you can reopen that ticket to do other things. Now, I've been adding items to the ticket, and I didn't mention it yet because you can't really see it. But you'll notice right now it's all black. that means the menu item has already been sent to the kitchen. Okay? But if I were to add another menu item, it means that this item was just added, but it's not sent to the kitchen yet. I just added it. The kitchen has not seen this. So one little thing to be careful of, even though I selected this menu item, I added it to a ticket. If I hit cancel right now, right, the creme brulee, if I hit cancel and if I go back in, you notice it's not on there. So if it's not sent to the kitchen yet, and then you hit cancel to exit the ticket, it will not save because it's not sent. Only items that are sent to the kitchen will remain on the ticket. Okay. Now we had a send, which of course sends but then exits the ticket. We also have a send and stay, and the reason for that is sometimes they're making an order. You want to get like whatever items they have right away, but they're not finished yet. A lot of times people will actually do that for tableside ordering. They'll get the drinks in and everything, and they'll send it right away so the drinks can be made whatever it may be, but then still remain in the ticket because the customers are still ordering. So if I click send and stay, you notice it sends and I'm still in the ticket. Now we have one last one, which is print check and send. So we have 3 send buttons. So it prints a guest check and sends the order at the same time. That's and of course exit the ticket. All right. Whoops. So let's go back in. Now let's click on one of these items, and it brings up what we call item commands because it only applies to this one menu item that I selected. If I want to see the menu again, I can click show menu, right? Or if there's space, and there's not always space, but if there is space, I can click on the blank space on the ticket and it would show the menu again. So going back, we have different commands here. Transfer. What this does is you can transfer the entire ticket to a new table, right? Sometimes you open a ticket, but you want to transfer it to another table. Maybe you move them, so you can actually, even though this is a fast sale, you can transfer it to a table, or if it was on one table, you want to transfer them to another table, because sometimes what happens is they open a table, but then they have more friends coming in and you need to transfer them to a bigger table. So you can do that as well, right? That's what that is for. So that's what the transfer function is for. And I'll actually show you that when I open a table, so it's easier to see, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it on a fast sale. But you can also transfer, like, say, 1 item or 2 items to a different ticket as well. Since I only have 1 ticket available, I can't do that. Let's just go ahead and open up a second ticket. So now I have 2 tickets. The second ticket only has 1 item, right? Just the absolute. Let's go in the first ticket. And I'm going to transfer one of the creme brulee. You'll notice it lists any ticket that you have open, so I'm going to transfer it into the second ticket. And I select transfer item. Are you sure? I'm going to choose yes. So it moved that creme brulee into the second ticket. Now if I hit cancel, if I go in the second ticket, you'll see that there's now 2 items. So you can transfer an item, right? Let me just quickly open a table. So this is table 200. I'll go back to opening a table in a moment. So we started this ticket, and I can actually transfer the entire ticket into another table. So we open ticket 200. I can select another table and transfer table. Whoops. Sorry. So instead of table 200, we transferred the entire ticket to table 100. So we can actually do that as well for the transfer function. Quantity, very simple. You click on it, you can change the quantity of the items. A lot of times people lock that because what we find is that it's not used that much where you would need to change the quantity, but we find that it can be a security risk for your employees to, and open up to cheating. Price, we can change the price, right? Click on it, just type in a new price and click enter, right? So it's $5.95. I can change it to $6.95. Click enter. and we change the price. We can also void the item. So if we made a mistake, we can void the item. For example, let's say this was a mistake. I can select it, click void item, and then I choose a reason for the void, right? And these reasons are things that you can change on your own. And we also have an optional function. We can turn this on or off. And we can make it automatic or not. So we can turn off the ability to send a void to the kitchen. We can make it automatic, or we can make it request, meaning it'll ask you if you want to send a void. And the whole reason for that is, let's say you send a menu item in and and the customer changes his mind right away. Well, when you void it, instead of having to run to the back and say, hey, don't make this item, we can send the void to the kitchen. And the staff would see that. Now, if it was a while ago, then, again, you may opt not to send it. It may have already been made, in other words. Delay print. We do have a delay print function. So instead of having to manually hold a menu item, right, and then coming back to it and sending it, right, because we do have a hold function where the item is on the ticket but not sent, what we can do is make it automatic. Right? So if we added, say, a new menu item, click delay print, and I can tell it, hey, right now it's, it usually has a default time that we can set, but so it's set 5 minutes ahead. Right now it's 11:01, and it defaults to 11:06. But I can actually tell it when to send, so I can say, hey, 11:30. So in about another 30 minutes roughly, 28 minutes or so, automatically send this item. See that? So we can automate the send process. The other method of holding it is this. This is automatic. You don't have to do anything. Once you send it, you never have to worry about it. As soon as 11:30 hits, or slightly after, when it does the next check. So it might be like, say, 11:30 and 30 seconds or whatever. It'll automatically send this item to the kitchen. You don't have to worry about it. Let me void that off. The other way we can use a hold process where we don't send the menu item right away is this, right? So let's put something on here, and we hold it. Now, when it's held, it does not send to the kitchen. Okay? So if I go back in the ticket, you see, it's still red, meaning it's not sent to the kitchen, but it's actually on there because we added it, but we're saying, hey, hold it. Don't make it yet. So don't send it. Now, when I click on it again, you'll notice that instead of saying hold, it'll actually say fire up hold, right? Once I do that and I send it, now it actually sends to the kitchen. So, again, for a delay print, we can actually automate the delay process, or we can manually hold it and then decide when we want to send it in. Okay. Request price. And basically, not request price. So let's say that this menu item, it's a standard menu item, but the customer has a special request. And sometimes that can be something special. Let's say that normally this item is not made that way. You can add a special request. And you can actually add a price to the request, and you can make it upcharge. And what I mean by upcharge is, instead of having a separate line for the price, it'll actually roll the price into the main menu item price, so they only see one price rather than multiple. And the whole purpose of this is usually because, this particular dish is made a certain way, but the customer has a special request and say, hey, either add this or maybe take something out or do something else to it. And that's what that special request is, right? So maybe a dish is not normally made with peanuts, right? And then they say, hey, can you add peanuts to it because that's the way I want it made? Something weird. Maybe you made a sandwich and the guy said, hey, put crushed peanuts in my sandwich or something. I don't know. So that's what the special request is. It's just something the customer wants. Move item. Basically, move item is moved between the different people. And what that's used for is this. For example, this spring roll here, I can move it to person 1. And the whole purpose of that is to keep track of who ordered what in case you need to split an item. And, most places won't use it. So I can move it to person 1 or even a new person. For example, this was ordered from person 3. I can make new person, you see, right? So I can move that to say person 1. Okay, so let's select again and go to the next item. So that's what the move item is. It's more to move to like a different seat for tracking purposes in case you need to split an item or anything like that. Repeat is pretty simple. Let's say you had something that was customized a certain way, right? Right? So this is how you want it made, and then the other guy says, "Hey, you've got all these options there added." The other guy says, "Hey, I want something exactly the same way," right? So you can click on it and then say repeat, and it just repeats the same menu item. That way, you don't have to go in and type all that the exact same options again. So it kind of helps you save a little time when you're doing that. Okay. Oops. Now the commands. Let me void these off so it makes it easier to see. Sorry. Show menu. So commands, sometimes if you need a special command, right? It's almost like the request, but these are pre-created commands. You know how like you can have a special request. So this is the same thing except these are actually pre-created. So, you can do a don't make to go or maybe dressing on the side, things like that, right? Again, all of this is all pre-created and it would actually print on the kitchen, with the menu item. So again, it's very similar to a request, except these are the commands are pre-created. Now, again, we do have another page. So we can split the item, and a split item is actually used because sometimes you split the dish between two different people and everyone's paying on their own. Normally, you may not even use it. Split item, so you can split between, so this is seat number 3. I can split with, say, seat number 2. And everyone would get half and half. Most people don't even use this. The only times they actually use it is if they need to that one specific dish and everyone's paying on their own. Kind of a rare occurrence. Add or remove discount is very similar to the ticket discount, except on the item level, right? Works exactly the same way, all right? Comp item is, again, comp. Your employee, whoever is doing it, does, or the manager does have to have comp credits, but it would actually remove the item from the ticket as far as pricing goes. So you click on it, click comp, a reason for the comp, right? And these are pre-created reasons, and then it would get removed from the ticket because it's comped. It's still there for certain tracking purposes, but it's actually removed from the ticket. Resend, for whatever reason, let's say you know that the item was not sent correctly, right? And you want to resend it, right? You can select whichever item it is, click resend, and you can resend. You can actually select multiple items in this case. You can resend the selected items or resend all items, right? So if I select 2 items and I choose the resend, it resends the 2 that are highlighted, or I can resend all items, like I said. Coursing. You can change the coursing number on this. I'll actually skip that for now, but I'll just explain what coursing means. And coursing is when you send the order to the kitchen, it kind of organizes the order so that it's more logical. For example, drinks and things like that would be at the top. Appetizers would be next. Entree next, and then dessert last, for example. So no matter what order you ring up the items in this ticket, it'll actually reorganize it into a more logical form, and that's what the coursing is for. But in order to do that, we actually assign a coursing number to each of the items, and all that does is when I select that, change the coursing, I'm just changing the coursing number, right? That's all it is, so that I know what order it's going in. Room charge we'll skip, but basically for this, if this was a table, certain places have what's like a room charge, but we actually assign it on a table. And basically it's like, it costs you say $50 an hour for this table and stuff, and that's what it is. Click on room charge. Oh, this is not a table, so it can't do it. Well, it's not used that much anyways, but I'm just explaining what it does. Modify pizzas for a specific pizza item. We'll skip that. And again, timestamp is just showing when this item was rang up. So if you want to see when something was added to a ticket, you can click on the show timestamp. Let's go to the payment screen. Again, I'm just trying to cover all the common stuff that you may see. So some of the things I may just explain it and then kind of gloss over it until a later time when you may want to review it and then go through certain other functionality. Now, this is the payment screen. On the left side, we have our payment types. We have a number pad in the middle and some quick payment buttons here. We also have our total due and the current amount due. And there's a difference between those two, all right, which we'll show in just a moment. Now, similar to, say, a menu item and everything, or a category, we can have more than one page of payment types. And we actually support a lot of different payment types, including custom payment types. So what we notice is that, some places may have something like, say, a Grubhub, which we don't have a specific payment for, or even something local, some kind of local delivery service. Well, we can't keep going in and coding a payment button for you. So what we did is allow them to name the payment button themselves. So they can actually make a button, name it whatever they want, and have it show up here as a payment type. All right. Now on the right side, we can review the ticket. So if you click on payment, it just shows, a summary of the payment. But we click on receipt, you can actually see the details of this ticket, the exact items that were added, things like that. Exactly the same as a receipt view or guest check. If they need to, there's a calculator that can pop up, right? And there's a cancel button here if you want to close it. So there's like a mini calculator there. So let's go back to the payment. Exit is obviously exit the payment screen. Print check is to print the guest check again. Issue loyalty points, if you deal with loyalty points, that's there. VIP discount, same thing. Not everyone uses it. Cash drawer will just simply pop open the cash drawer again. And again, I'm going to gloss over certain things like issue loyalty because, we're doing the basic training right now. We can always cover things like loyalty programs and stuff as a separate function. I always find that's more helpful than me trying to jump around to all kinds of different places while we're going through it. So let's go back. So you kind of have an idea of the payment screen now. So let's go ahead and make a payment. Now, if I click one of these payment buttons, it assumes I'm paying this amount. So if I don't type a tender amount, it's just assuming I'm paying for the entire ticket. So for example, cash. If I hit cash right now, it just assumes I'm paying for the entire $71.94, and you can actually see that here, and that no change is needed, or I know what the change is. Okay, let's go in a different ticket. Now, I can also type in an amount. So if I type 15, I click cash, it'll actually pay for the ticket and then show me what my change is. And, pop open the drawer if I have drawer access, of course. So credit is the same way, right? I can type in amount or I can simply click credit. Okay, I don't have an EDC up, but if I did, let me see. Sorry. Sorry, one moment. Oh, I don't have an EDC in this. I do apologize. I don't have an EDC there. Let me do this. These are demo systems, so I don't actually have an EDC up. So I can't make a payment, but I can actually show you the screen. So give me one moment, please.
You can just go in the profile, right, and remove the EDC license and automatically run. That's what I use.
Yeah, but that's kind of the offline. I actually wanted you to see the actual payment screen so that everyone's on the same page. So one moment, please. So this is actually someone's and it's also a different version, just as a note, but this is actually someone else's database. Different coloration, but the functionality is exactly the same. So let's click credit. So this is actually the payment screen right here, right? And if you're not using a PAX EMV terminal, you can actually just swipe the card right now. Again, all that is set up in the back office, but you can swipe the card and then click OK to process. Or if you're processing an EMV card, you're connected to a PAX. At this point, you would click the OK button. It would talk to the PAX. You would either swipe the card or stick the chip in, right? Now, and then it would let you know if it's good or not. Now, the other thing you can do is if you need to, you can manually type in the card number, right? Whatever your card number may be, expiration date, and then click OK to process it. That would be manually processing a credit card. And of course, it would let you know if it's good or not. Let me see if I can try to process it. I don't think it'll work because, yeah, it's not set up that way. Let me see if I have a ticket open. So let's say we did pay for it and it was credit card. This is exactly what you would see right here like this, right? And at this point, you can add a tip. In other words, we can actually exit the ticket and come back later, right? Just like reopening a normal ticket. It's already paid for, but not flagged as closed, meaning finalized. So we can actually go back into the ticket, right? Whoops, I should have. Was it okay? It was this. So we can exit. We can do something else. We can go back in the ticket, go to the payment screen, and then if you see your payment here, you click on it. We can actually modify the tip amount. It won't actually do that because this is someone's actual data that we were looking at. So you can type in the tip amount, click enter tip, and then if you click modify, it'll actually save the tip, which it won't do because I don't have their go. We were just playing with it, but that's the process of entering a tip. Okay. Now, just as a note, if we go to the closeout screen, from the main screen, manager closeout, this is the batch out screen. Whatever credit card payments you have here, if you forgot to enter tip or you maybe entered the wrong tip, you can actually come over here and then adjust the tip as well. Something to note. So I'll cover that up right now, and let's jump back to the one we've been using. Now, that was the credit card payment, and there's, it's saying connected to EDC, but, we don't actually have an EDC. Let me actually do something else right now. And I'm going to show you manual. So the other way that I just showed you was if you're actually connecting to, say, the EDC software or a PAX EMV terminal. But let's say you want to manually pay, let's say you have a credit card terminal on the side and it's not connected to the POS. At that point, you would process whatever you need to on that side credit card terminal. But then when you're paying for it, you would go in, click credit. Oh, shoot. I thought I turned that off. Give me one moment here. Oh, wrong station. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'll have to double check that. But there's a manual process where you can click credit card, and it would just allow you to choose the credit card type. Let's see here. So let's say you had a ticket, right? You're paying for it, and it's manual. You process on a side terminal. It would just show this up, and you would just choose the credit card. It assumes you actually received full payment for that ticket. Okay. Now the other thing you can do is, if you're inside a ticket, you can actually do multiple forms of payments. So let's clear this. So your total bill is $538, right? The guy can say I'm paying part cash and part something else. So for example, let's say I'm paying $2 in cash. You notice that there's it records the cash payment or whatever payment type you're using first. Now one other thing you'll notice is your ticket total is still $538, right? But the amount due, meaning what's left, is different. Okay? So I can then go in and select something else, for example, check or whatever, right? Gift card, anything else, and then make that payment. Okay, so that's how we would do multiple forms of payment. Sometimes people want to do part cash, part credit. All right? So that's kind of running through the entire ticket. Now let's actually do one other thing in a ticket. Now earlier I said talked about the So earlier I talked about taxes and tips. Now, if an item was not supposed to be taxed, for example, this, right? We can actually remove the tax, and I can remove tax. Now, currently my tax is $118. If I remove tax, I actually did it on the entire ticket, not the item. So, if you need to remove tax, that's what it does. Now, the other thing you can do is this. If you need to manually add tip, and why would you need to manually add tip? Well, the whole reason is, if they're paying with something like, say, a check, you might have a big ticket and, they're paying everything. Well, you can't have them write two different checks for you, so you need to add the tips ahead of time, whatever the amount may be. So you add tip, and this is actually 18%. And I can actually click clear and type 25% or whatever it may be. Or if I click the flat amount, right, 20, and I click flat amount, that is now a $20 tip, right? So that's adding a tip to the ticket. And then I can go ahead and pay it with something like, say, check or whatever, or even gift cards. We've had cases where people allow paying that way and manually adding a tip for a gift card. Now we're going to the split ticket. And in this case, I'm actually going to add a couple of people. So I have person number 1. I'm going to add a new person. Right? So person 1 has some items. Person number 2 has some items. And if you had more people than that, you can add them to the ticket as well. But now let's go into the split ticket. Now, when we're splitting the ticket, we can split in a few different ways. So number 1, we can do an even split, right? Meaning, let's split it evenly between however many people you need it to. So if I click split evenly, I can choose the number of splits. For example, I can do 2, and everybody's paying half, right? If I make a mistake, I can click on start over. Split evenly, let's do it 3, and you can actually see it, right? Everybody's paying for 1/3. Okay. Now we can also split all, and the split all function actually requires the seats, because what it's going to do is say, okay, person number 1 had this, person number 2 had this. Split them. So you notice person 1 has their items, person number 2 has their items, and I can go ahead and split it at that point. Or what I can do is manually split it. And what I mean by that is I'll select the items and then place it where I want. For example, Um, so I can select these three and split it to person one or ticket one, select the other, and go to the second ticket. So you can see I have different ways. I can manually split everything. I can split it based on the seating if you actually set that, or I can split everything evenly between however many people I need to. All right, and it's not limited to just four. Just as a note, let me hit cancel, but let me add a few more items. It's not limited to just the 4 tickets you see here. I actually have another page where I can keep on going. And the way we limit it is based on the number of menu items on the ticket, right? So if I've got just like 4 or 4 or less, it just shows the 4. If I've got say 5 to 8, it would show the next page, and then I can't go forward because I don't have more than 8. But if I had say 9 to 12, I would have a third page where it allows me to split even further. Okay. Now, when I'm actually splitting, if I make a mistake and I want to exit out, I can just hit cancel. So if I split that and I click OK, it would actually do the split, or I can click OK and print. And what it will do at that point is print a guest check. So one for the first split and one for the second split when I click OK and print. Now I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Are you sure? I'm going to choose yes. And you can actually, it'll bring you to the payment screen, right? And if you click on each one, it'll actually show that exact ticket. You can actually see the total. So you can actually pay for it right now and then pay for the second. So that's how you would split the ticket. Any questions on the splitting ticket function?
No, actually, Anthony, I do have a question on the removing of tax. If nobody has a question on splitting tickets. So are we unable to remove tax on a particular item, or just the whole ticket, right? We can't remove taxes for one particular item?
Yeah, it's just for the ticket. No, actually, it should be just for that one item. Give me a second here. Let me void the item. So we're going to add one. We got 9-cent tax. We're going to add the second one. It's 18-cent tax. We remove the tax. It's doing it on the entire ticket. I'll have to check up on that. We don't really use that function as much. But it's removing for the entire ticket. Okay. Okay. So I just ran through like all the basic. Oh, you know what? There's one item I forgot, and I always miss it, and it's the number on the side, as well as the search button. So I apologize. So basically, what that is this. Let's say that they wanted to order 5 of something, right? Let's say someone says, give me 5 Bud Lights. Well, I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Or what I can do is 5, and let me just do a Sam Adams so you can see. So that kind of makes it easier for you as well. And that's the quantity modifier here running along the bottom right. Now, if you type something in and you make a mistake and your quantity modifier will show up here, you can just hit clear. So that can help you when you're adding menu items as well. It's not used as much, probably more so for a bar where they're like, someone says, give me half a dozen, Bud Lights or whatever, right? No sense clicking it 6 times. So that's what that is. Now, the other thing we can do is click the search button. And with the search, we can do 2 things. We can search by a item, item number. If you enter a menu item number, right, we can enter that. We can search by that. And it doesn't have to be a number pad. If I toggle keypad, it would bring up a keyboard. For example, someone might have, say, C1. I'm sure you've seen that. It doesn't strictly have to be a number. I don't know if I actually have that, so let me just try 1. Yeah, you see, I typed 1, and it added a grilled chicken to the menu. To the ticket. If I type 2, you can see avocado. So whatever it may be, we can do that. Now, the other thing we can do with this search is if we bring up the keyboard, we can actually type based on the name. So let me say grill. And anything that starts with grill, would show up. So I've got grilled chicken and I got the grilled ribeye steak. You know, whatever your menu items may be. At that point, I can select it and click OK to add it to the ticket. So there's a little search function. You know, sometimes you might have like the odd menu item that's not rung up too much. You can just do a search for it. Okay, so that's the search function.
You got the recipe button as well. Don't forget the recipe button, Anthony.
Yeah, well, you know, most people don't really use that. Mm-hmm.
Really? I think that's great for bartenders, for new bartenders.
I'm not even sure where we have an item with a recipe. Just to let you know.
Yeah, up in the left-hand corner where there's the R, or next to the server, or has server. Where it says server admin A, see the R right there. If you hit the R, it'll highlight to red.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if I have an item with a recipe. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, we can always come back. I'm just trying to follow through all the common items right now. So if you have any basic questions, you know, you guys can review this and go through it, right? So, again, this is kind of a demo menu. This is not an actual real one. I didn't check to see what's in there. So the other thing, table. Now we actually have different sections. So on the top right, you can actually have, you know, different sections of the restaurant because, you know, not everything's going to fit into one easy to see layout. And when we're doing the layout, there's different things we can do, right? Background, we can put the tables on there. We can actually color code the tables. We can make simple drawings and shapes to make it easier for you to see. For example, you can see where the exit is, you know, restroom, kitchen area, bar area, you know, where the host table is, et cetera, et cetera. So it kind of helps you visualize it as a waiter, so you can kind of know where everything is, right? And to open a table, it's very simple. We can select it, click the OK button. So this is table 204. And it's going to ask you the number of guests, and that's kind of important. You can, if you're not sure, you can just leave it at the 1. But the whole reason for that is the auto gratuity. You know how, like a lot of places, it's, you know, say 6 or more guests. You know, we're going to put automatic gratuity on your ticket. So that's what that is for. You know, the number of guests. Click OK, and you can go ahead and, you know, start adding your menu items. Now, let's say that. You know, let's say that they only had, you know, X number of guests, and then they had more guests later on, and that would kick in the auto gratuity. You can actually modify the number of guests later. So you see the top here. If you click on that, you can select, say, 6 guests, and you can see that we had it set to automatically create the number of seats. You can turn the auto seats on and off. All right. Now, the other thing you can do, if you need to, is change the table or the ticket type. So if the ticket type rather. So if you click on that, right, you can actually switch this to a different table type. And the reason why we added that is some places, more common for, say, a bar, right? Some guy says, you know, I've got friends coming in. Let me sit at the bar. So the bartender may not know they started a bar tab ticket. Then the guy says, I've got 3 other friends coming in. Transfer me to a table. So you can actually transfer it to as a dine-in. Rather than a bar ticket, you can actually transfer it to a dine-in ticket and then choose the table. So that's the whole purpose of being able to change the ticket type. And let me actually do this. Let me start a bar. Oh, it's not it. Whoops. Bar tab. Okay. And by the way, we can actually pre-authorize a bar tab. You know, you have to turn that on in the back office, right? And then you can swipe their card. In this case, I'm just going to skip that part and just start a ticket. So you got a guy, he's at the bar. This is a bar tab ticket, right? And he says, okay, my friends are here. Can you move me to a table? Well, rather than having to go through like the transfer function, which is, you know, not as intuitive, you have to click on that. Go to transfer, look for the table. What we find is a lot of people actually prefer to do it this way. They click on a ticket type, and they say, okay, this is now a dine-in ticket. and then okay, they're going to be seating at table 303, and then just click OK. We find that that's actually easier for a lot of people. That's why we made it that way. You're certainly free to use the transfer function, but we find that that's easier for people to do. And like I said, the most common reason people change the ticket type right there is because, you know, like I said, they sit at the bar, they're waiting for their friends, there's a bar ticket started, and then they want to get transferred to an actual table. All right? So let's go back to the table. Now, again, any table that's in red is occupied. You know, you can click on a table, go back in, and start adding more items, and then sending it, right? The other thing we can do, you know, that's very common is this. So let's say that you had a large group come in, right? And you say, okay, you know what? There's a very large group. One table is not going to cover them. So you want to push two tables together to form, you know, one large table. You know, that's pretty common in the restaurant. Well, here's what other places might do that don't have a dedicated join function. They'll start ticket 200, open it, right? And when they come back in, they'll say, oh, you know, wait staff, you'll just have to know that 201 is actually joined with 200, right? But there's really no way to see that. Now, the other thing we can do is this. In our POS software, we have a join function. So if I click join, I can actually join two or more tables, right? And then click OK. Oh, shoot. Did someone turn on table assignment? Oh, man. I think someone turned on table assignment. Let's do this. Sorry. Those were actually locked to a particular employees. This is the demo database, and sometimes people play with it. But what I did is I selected two tables, and I started it. So let me actually send an order. Now, if I go back in, you see this? It's got a little icon that lets you know that these two tables are joined together. And we can actually do that again, right? Let me join these two tables here. And you notice this time it's a yellow icon. And if we go back in, you can tell exactly which two icons are there. Well, I changed the color. But these two have the same color icon. Maybe a little hard to see because the screen is kind of small. But, you know, on the top left, there's an icon. So we know these two are joined. We know these two are joined. And if you had more, you can keep joining tables if you have any large parties. So that's kind of helpful because I can click on this table or this table. It'll go into the same ticket, and everybody knows that it's occupied. So that's one of the good things about it. I'm going to kind of skip over some of these other functions because they're not really, we find that, you know, 95% of the people don't use it. So I'm trying to give you a basic overview of the system, and then, you know, we can keep adding on to your knowledge as we go along further. All right?
Hey, Anthony, I got a real quick question about joining tables. So let's say you're joining two tables together and to make one table like you just did. And let's say it's towards the end of the evening and half the party is gone and you want to turn over that one of those tables or unjoin it so you can seat another party. Are you able to do that?
There is a little workaround. What you can do is use the transfer function. And what you can do is transfer it out and then transfer it back if that's what you so wish. There's no official unjoin function. What we find is that you get it. Sometimes there might be you know, some places call it a parking lot or a parking table. Basically what they'll do is transfer this table to something else, another table. Actually, so let's actually do that. So you see the transfer function here? I can turn on the transfer, I can select that, and they'll actually have like a table on the side that they know is not a real table, right? And what they'll do is transfer to that. Gosh. Whoops. And they'll transfer it back.
Okay.
You know what? I don't think it's actually allowing me to properly transfer that. I may have to do it within the other function, which is to transfer it inside the ticket. It's actually joining these two together. So you may actually want to go inside and then do your transfer process using this here.
Okay.
Okay. So you can transfer everything to one particular table. On the table layout, it's just thinking you want to transfer everything into two different tables still. All right. So the other, see, so I kind of show you how the table layout, and when we're inside the table, all the other functions are exactly the same. So, you know. Now the other thing we have is, of course, when we're inside the pickup and delivery function. And we do support caller ID. We support up to a 8-line caller ID device, but most commonly people just use a 2-line caller ID. So these are white right now, but if you had a caller ID and there was actually saved data, it would be red to show that there's a caller ID data saved. That it'll actually pull up the customer's info if they were at your location before. And the way it does that is based on the phone number, right? Because what we find is a lot of caller ID, the caller ID will read the data the same way, but the problem is depending on what phone company you are, and we're working nationwide, everybody seems to send the caller ID info differently. I've seen cases where everything is on one line, you know, first name and last name is just on one line. I've seen cases where everything is correct, where the first name is the first name and the last name is the last name. I've also seen cases where it's reversed. So whatever was in the first name field is actually their last name, and vice versa. So it's very hard. And I've also seen some cases where you have a digital line, you know, like, yeah, like let's say you got your phone lines through Comcast, for example, right? And the phone line that's there, you know, the phone line from Comcast doesn't read the call ID correctly. I've actually seen that as well. So it just shows up as garbled, you know, numbers and characters. Now, on this is how we create a new, you know, if you didn't have a call ID and everything was manual, this is what we would do. So you get a call in, you know, you check the phone number, you get that. Okay, there's actually someone with that. I apologize. Let me clear that. So let's say this is a brand new customer, right? You get their phone number. There should not be someone there. Okay. You would get their first name and last name, address, right? And then you would, you know, type in the city and the zip code. And you can also add miscellaneous things like email or any miscellaneous notes. But the main thing is phone number, first name, last name, and address. Once you get that, you can start a pickup ticket or a delivery ticket. Okay? So pickup obviously means they're calling in for the order, but they're going to come in to get the order, right? So this is a pickup ticket. And you can actually see the pickup. So once they come in later on, you can go in the ticket, and then you can pay for the ticket however you wish. Now we created a customer with the number 5, right? You know, all 5s. So let's say this is a repeat customer and they're coming back. So if I type 5 and I click Get Address, so it knows exactly who that customer is because they've been there. As soon as you start a ticket with that customer's info, it saves the customer to the database. All right. So that way, the next time they come in, all you really need is the phone number, right? As long as the phone number is correct, you can type that in, get address, everything else gets filled in. And, you know, again, we can start, say, a delivery ticket. Now, you see we do have a delivery charge on there. We can change the delivery charge amount. We can say, you know, that there is no delivery charge. And one other thing is we can also do a delivery charge split. And what the delivery charge split is, out of that delivery charge, what percentage is going to the owner, what percentage is going to the driver? You know, because if the owner is the one that's providing the car, the gas, everything, obviously he's going to want the entire delivery charge, more likely than not. But if the employee is the one that's providing his own vehicle and gas and everything, he doesn't want to be out of any money driving around, with gas and everything. So he may be the one getting the delivery charge, or it may be a split percentage, maybe 30% to the owner, 70% to the employee. Who knows? So we do allow that as well. Now, adding the menu items to the ticket. Now we can send it. Let's go back. So that's a delivery ticket. Now, when we're doing deliveries, right, we actually have a driver dispatcher function, which I will not cover, but I'm going to go in there just to show you briefly. And basically, if you had drivers, you can actually assign a driver and send it out. So I'm not going to cover this at that moment. It's something that I actually want to, but basically what you can do is track whatever tickets a driver has and everything. Okay. All right. So the recall ticket function is very similar to the buttons at the top. If I click recall ticket, it simply shows all the tickets that I have available, but it shows every single ticket, no matter what ticket type it is. I can select it and then reopen that ticket. Okay. Cash drawer simply pops open the cash drawer. Now, one other thing we can do is if you know the check number, for example, some places will print the check out, place it on the table, and then the customer will walk up to the cashier station and then give the check to the cashier. Well, you're already going to see the ticket number, right? So instead of having to click on here, some places have like 40, 50 tickets open. We've seen as much as that. Some, slow place might only have a few. You would then have to search for the ticket, select it, and then open the ticket, right? Well, if I know what the ticket number is, for example, 113, I can type 113 and click pay and go right into the ticket rather than have to go through the search function. We find for a lot of places with many, many tickets open, this is the fastest way for them. Okay? So when you're on the dashboard where you can start tickets and everything, that's what this is for. You enter the ticket number, and then you can click pay, and it goes right into the payment screen. Now, the last ticket type that I'm going to talk about right now is refund. If you click the refund ticket, it's exactly the same as starting a normal ticket, but anything on here is considered a refund, meaning it's negative. So, for example, you can ring that up. You'll notice it's a -1 quantity, and it's in parentheses, meaning we're going to be paying back the customer. Go to the payment screen, and then you can choose. Now, there's only 2 payment types available, either cash or credit. None of the others will be highlighted or enabled. It's actually grayed out. Maybe a little hard to see because this is gray versus, black text. A little hard to see. And then you would just pay that out. And it assumes you took, if we pay with cash, it assumes you took money out and paid to the customer. So refund ticket is almost like starting a normal ticket, except everything is in negative. All right. So let's go ahead and just pay for all of these or void ticket, however we may. And so let's say this is the end of the day. Everything is either paid for or whatever. All your tickets are closed. Okay, so you've got no ticket open. It's the end of the day. Everybody's ready to go home. Let's go to the back. So everybody should be clocking out, right? However many. So you would type in your password, go to clock in or clock out, and then clock out. Okay, this is the cash settlement. Because I have a physical cash drawer, it's going to ask me to settle, meaning this is kind of a blind checkout. It's going to ask me how much cash I have in the drawer. You can actually All right. So everybody should be clocked out at this point, and then the owner or manager should be going in and then running their report. All right. So let's go to the manager function, and for the end of the day report, everything should be on the closeout. All right. On the closeout, you got multiple employees. If you had multiple employees, everybody should show up. You can click on each particular employee to see their reports, but by default, it shows the entire restaurant. Okay. So here's some of the numbers here. So sales received should be your sales total, right? That's the actual, sales that are going to be recorded. But you'll notice there's also a comp item here, whatever comps. And then the actual total is this would have been your total if everything was paid for. But more often than not, all you need to do is look at this to see a summary. Now, if you want to see some of the details, we're going to go down a little bit, right? I'm just showing you in brief some of the common numbers. So ticket subtotal is your sales without any tax. Obviously, you have the ticket tax. Now, tip tax. In case anyone is not sure, certain locations, it's actually enabled on this demo station, but certain locations where you have, automatic gratuity or any type of gratuity that is on the ticket, pre-printed on the ticket, it's taxable. I know California, certain places in California, if not the entire state of California, has that rule where if it's an automatic gratuity, it's taxable. If it's something the customer writes in themselves, it's not taxable. So that's why there's a tip tax line, right? And then you see the totals there. We do have a refund ticket, and you can see that here. This is pretty important, which is the amount of cash that you collect for the day on that cash drawer. And if you had more than one station with a cash drawer, right, it would show one for each one because, obviously you need to see how much cash you collected. Cash reconciliation. This can actually change, by the way, depending on your settings. And the reason I say that is because some places, when they pay tip, it's done on a nightly basis. So we'll actually subtract the tip that you pay out from this cash reconciliation. But certain places actually pay tip with the payroll check, so they don't actually want to subtract the tip amount from this. All right, so it's going to show you different things. So your starting cash, how much cash sales you have, if you paid in or paid out any money. Let's say you had to take money out for whatever reason, or you had to pay money in. And a common reason is, let's say that you ran out of change, right? And the guy says, here's $20 in ones, and he didn't take it. So you would actually record that. Some places will actually swap it out, but some places, meaning you'll take $20 out of the drawer and give it to him. He'll give you 21s. Some places will actually just give you 21s to the cashier and then record that as a paid in. So, however they do it. Staff fees are basically any fees for credit card tips. For example, you're taking 3% from the employee tips, any credit card tips to cover the cost of credit card processing. So you're allowed to do that only whatever fees you collect. Meaning, if it was 3%, then, roughly 3%, you're allowed to take, say, 3% to cover the credit card fees for any tips, but only credit card tips. If they had cash tips, that would be there. And most places will not record cash tips. Usually you'll only see a cash tip on, say, auto gratuity, and then the guy paid cash or something like that. Non-cash tip can mean anything from, say, gift cards, credit cards. Not credit cards, but gift cards, checks, and things of that nature. And of course, credit card tip is credit card tip, and any delivery charges you collect. I think I avoided that ticket. That's why. Down here, we kind of have a summary of all the payment types that you received. And then because you may need to match it up, you'll actually see a summary of, say, your credit card down here. All right. There's other detail here, such as voids and stuff like that you'll see, but I'm just trying to cover all the basic stuff that might come up initially, especially for a new customer. You can also reprint any of these reports. Now you notice we have a clock out function here. What we find is sometimes employee may forget to clock out. The owner's there. You're not going to remember people's passwords, right? So what you can do is select someone that forgot to clock out and clock them out, or just say clock everyone out. Okay. If you need to, you can load a report from a previous day. So you can click load, choose say the 7th, and then load the report for that day, or go back to today. All right. There's a right arrow button. Now this is a cash drawer close, and basically what you're going to do is, you know how before we said, you know what, some places close the cash drawer and the employee counts it. Some places will actually bring it to the manager station, you know, the manager's office, and then count it then. So what you can do is load the drawer. So this is the drawer from today. I'm going to reopen it. And then at that point, you can double check what's there and what's not there. 271. Right? So you can type that in and then settle the drawer. These are closeout is a little more complex, so I'm going to cover that in more detail later, but I just wanted to give you an overview. Now, if employee has tips, you can settle their tip here as well, just as a note. It's actually set to settle nightly. That's why it's bringing this up. If not, it would actually not show the screen if you were to pay for it on, say, the payroll check. All right. Now, the last screen, we don't have any credit card tips, simply because on this demo station, we don't have any EMV or any EDC installed. But if you had, let's actually jump to this one for a moment. Again, this is a different version, an older version, but it's actually got some data. So let's say you had this. It would list all your credit card transactions for the day. You can select it. And let's say that you forgot to enter a tip. You can select it, type in the tip amount, click enter, and then save it. Right? I turned off the actual credit card processing, but the data is still there. But if you needed to batch out, once you're done double checking things, you just click the batch out button, and it would settle the credit card transactions. Also, please note we do support automatic batch. So, but we find that the majority of our customers prefer to manually batch, you know, in the restaurant, because they want to double check their tips and things like that. It's probably only more in a retail environment where they would want auto batch. Most restaurants do not want auto batch. So they would go in here to the closeout screen, double check the transactions, and then click that batch out button. And that's batching out. Now, that pretty much completes their day as far as all the basics go. And I think that would give you a pretty good idea of how to operate for right now. Any questions at the moment? Hello? Any questions?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, again, I'm glossing over certain things because you're not going to be able to cover every single function in one shot. And I'm just trying to get through all the things that they may use on a daily basis on any initial ones, and then we can cover things in more detail later, or if there's something you want to backtrack and cover. But if no one has any questions at the moment, that's where we're going to end it. I'll try to send you the video a little later today so you can review it and then practice and then go through the material, and then you can either call or email with any questions you may have. Okay. So,
perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we'll actually cover some of these manager level functions tomorrow, and if we have time, depending on and we'll probably review some of the functions in the main screens. But if we have time, I'll try to get in the menu setup. If not, we'll do that at Friday.
Sounds good.
Cool. So we're gonna do Wednesday and Friday, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool, man. Thank you, Anthony.
All right. Okay. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Anthony.